Hey guys, it's Reese Alley. I own a company called Adams & Alley. We work with infrastructure companies doing 1 to 3 million, and I make these videos because I'm not going to work with most people, and there's a lot of things that I think would help a lot of other contractors looking to get big, looking to get strong, and hopefully this helps. So this video is something that I've had come up in conversation quite a lot, and it seems controversial, but it's not because it's true, and giving customers what they want is ruining your company. It's ruining your sales, ruining your reviews, ruining your profit margins, and just about everything else. And I say this with sort of a grain of salt, but it's really true. And I want to go over an example today about one local example. And I'm now in a place to where I'm building dams and culverts and doing road work and things like that. But I got my start in landscape, as I think every other person that's ever been in construction did, or at least for the most part. So I'm going to go through an example of a homeowner project that I had to do so many times, and I've had a lot of friends go through the same process. And what happens, what downfalls happen when you give customers what they want? I had an estimator, I've had multiple estimators, and they had multiple different issues relating back to the fact where there would be a situation where they come back and they say, hey, this is what we want to do. It's $10,000. And they want to do this. And I say, okay, well, why'd you design that? And they said, well, that's what they asked for. And it's like, no. So many no's at the same time because they don't know what they want, especially homeowners. If you're a contractor and you're in the commercial realm of things and you have an engineer you're working with, that is a totally different story. But for the vast majority of residential projects, you go out to do a bid and you're talking to a homeowner, a wife, a husband, make sure they're both out there because there's a lot of issues that come with one of them being out there. But they're going to ask you how to design their dream. And let's say that this is an opinionated job and they want some backyard space. I'm going to use the example, if you can imagine the stereotypical home and it's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath home, let's say it's $400,000 and it has a steep backyard. They've been saving up and they have kids that are becoming of the age of playing in a backyard and they don't have anywhere to go. And so they're going to want to go have flat space in the backyard, right? And so they're going to call you out on ads or referral or whatever, and they're going to say, hey, Mr. Reese, I want you to create a area that we can play soccer in the backyard and somewhere our kids can play. And so there is multiple different things that you're going to do. I'm going to go through this example first and then go through the reasons why I think it's a stupid idea to give them exactly what they want. You have to shape their reality a little bit. And so they are calling you as the expert to shape their reality into what's possible, what's realistic, and what can really happen in the backyard in alignment with their expectations. And so if you go out there and you think, okay, well, they want flat space for their son to play in the yard. Okay, that's great. What sports is he playing? Do they want a basketball court? Is it a soccer court? Is it a soccer field or whatever? How much space do they need? How big are the kids? How long are they going to stay there? And what's their budget? You don't have to ask how much they make, but you need to know enough to be able to throw out prices and see what scares them and what doesn't. Because the worst thing that happens is you spend advertising money or it's a referral. You come out there and then you give them some $40,000 project and they only were going to spend like 5 to 10, and you look like an asshole because you're trying to overcharge them for something when in reality you just didn't get their expectations from the beginning. And so if you come out there and you say, okay, well, I'm going to design something just for this, and then you give a little bit of detail, you take measurements, and then you leave, and you send them that, the worst thing that can happen is you get the job. And let's say it was $30,000. In their mind, they were only wanting to spend $15,000, and so they're already splurging in the first place. You go out to do the job, and immediately there is issues because they're looking at the size of the wall, they're looking at the color that they didn't pick out or get a choice on, they're looking at the space. Well, we wanted to have a soccer field. How are we supposed to put a soccer goal right here if we only have X amount of space? And you're going to say, well, that's not what the scope says. I designed this size retaining wall and this size this. And you might be right, and it might hold up in court, but it's not the point. They hired you to fulfill their vision, not a specific scope on a contract, right? And so the right thing to do is if you were to go out there and you were to say, Mrs. Smith and Mr. Smith, hey, I know, here's what you want. You want to have this soccer field for your son. How much space does he need? How old is he? I know this is a pretty big slope, and so actually with walls over 30 inches in our area, we're going to have a guardrail. And so, or do you want it? If you want, we could go a 4-foot wall on the uphill side and then a 3-foot wall on the downhill side, and that'll give us 15 feet of space based on this elevation change. And in my experience, this is going to cost probably around $10,000 to $15,000. Is that something that you were prepared to spend? And then they're going to look at each other, and you're really going to get a feel for how far that bid's going to go. And they might look at it and be like, oh, well, I don't think so. We're trying to save for this, save for that. And so if we could really stick under 10,000, then that would be great. And then you think to yourself, I've got just the thing. Instead of selling them on or sending the bid on multiple different retaining walls and selling them on a pergola and a bunch of other stuff that they're not going to buy and they don't want in the first place, then you could say, okay, well, what if we did this? You've got this slope going down, but it drops off in the end. Why don't we do this? You need a lot of space, but we also you talked about having a retaining wall, but I understand you wanted a retaining wall, but did you want the retaining wall because you like the look of it, or you think it's necessary for the function you're trying to achieve? And they're going to think to themselves, well, I just thought when you make flat space, you have to build a retaining wall. And then you can inform them, oh, I totally understand, but that's just not the case. If we actually spent, $4,000 bringing in, whatever, 40 loads of dirt if you're getting it cheap, then we can actually build out the whole bottom of the yard, throw some juniper on the backside, and then you'll have even more space, and all we've got to pay for is machine time and labor, and then the juniper. And they're going to think to themselves, this is the smartest man on the face of the earth, because it's not that the retaining wall would have been wrong, and maybe that would have worked, but they just thought they needed a retaining wall because they thought it was necessary to achieve what they wanted, when in reality it wasn't. And so there was a cheaper option that was better fit for their budget, and all they had to do was be explained on why that was the case. And so there's so many guys out there that are just, they hear a customer's opinion on what they want, and that's fine, but they don't know how to achieve what they want. They have an idea about, you sell the sizzle, not the steak. They have the vision of sipping wine on the porch and watching their kids play sports in the yard with their friends, but they don't know how to construct a retaining wall or construct the drainage system that's needed to, navigate the uphill water flow their neighbor has that, if you don't pay attention to, is going to ruin what you just installed. And so they don't know how to do any of that kind of stuff. You have to have the confidence to tell them what they need. It is not, there is a line between arrogance and confidence. I do agree with that. However, if you're rude to them, that's one thing. But if they're explaining, well, we want this and we want that and we want this and we want that, but as a contractor, because you built that kind of stuff before, hey, that exact layout really isn't going to work, because if we have this type of wall and this type of pavers and system and grass or whatever, then that's not all really going to jive, and it's not going to accomplish what you were thinking it was going to. Because if their goal was flat space and they have this idea about this complex wall system that they need to do it with, but in reality they just needed a few rocks on the backside and 10 loads of dirt, then they're still going to be unhappy no matter what money they spend, whether it was cheap, whether it was expensive, whether it was anything they wanted at all. But if it didn't achieve what they wanted in the first place, it's your job to paint and construct a plan for that vision. And I guarantee you, most people aren't taking the time to do that. But the guys that have the 40%, the 50%, the 60, 70% closing rates, which is possible, those are the guys that do it. They're treating them like a client rather than a customer, someone that when they get them, they're working with them to achieve everything they needed. And so I think if y'all go in with that, what's your budget, what's your reality, and then what are the expectations for the outcome, I think if you keep those three things in your mind, then you really can't go wrong on the projects. And this goes for projects that are $2,000. This goes for projects that are $200,000. Right now we've got a residential project, which is the biggest residential job I've ever done and never sold, but it's $525,000 for one retaining wall in someone's backyard. It's an 18-foot poured retaining wall, so it's big, but it is the same thing. What are you trying to accomplish? What's needed to get it done? And how much is it going to cost? And then what's the reality? It's like, for example, he's got flagstone that's above the retaining wall with a big deck that's falling off the house. And so I can't go in there and say, hey, this isn't going to get shifted at all. So in our contract, and I explained to them on site, hey, this is most likely to get pretty cracked up on the edges of this on the edges of this flagstone, and as long as you set the expectation up front, then it's okay if it happens. And at least if you set the expectation, they're good with it, they understand it, and if it happens, then you were right, and if it doesn't happen, which I'm planning on it not happening anyways, then you're a superhero. And so you have to shape their reality. And if you spend a lot of time on that up front, then it will absolutely make your life easier. Your margins are going to be higher. You'll be able to protect your margin better, and the whole system is going to go smoother. So I hope this helps. If y'all have any questions on that, let me know, and I'll try and expand on some more of this in the future. So catch you in the next one.